The emergency alarm screamed through the halls of Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the heart of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Talira stumbled into the council chambers, her blue skin covered in ash and dried blood. Her elegant robes, once a symbol of Velar diplomatic pride, hung in tatters. Behind her, the holographic display showed the horror she had escaped. Her homeworld burning, cities reduced to rubble, and the black swarm of enemy ships blotting out the stars. "Please," she gasped, falling to her knees before the assembled representatives. "Please, you must help us." The Cronath came without warning. "They're killing everyone. My people are dying by the millions." High Chancellor Vexor, a tall reptilian being with golden scales, looked down at her from his elevated seat. His expression showed concern, but his eyes held calculation. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 40 species whispered among themselves. The sound echoed off the crystal walls like waves against a shore. "Ambassador Talira," Vexor said slowly, "we understand your distress. The Cronath swarm is indeed a terrible threat, but you must understand our position. We are a council of peace. Our fleets are designed for protection, not warfare." Talira looked up, tears streaming down her face. "They've already taken 3 of our colony worlds. Our defense fleet lasted less than an hour. If you don't help us, the Velar species will cease to exist within a week." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew she spoke the truth. The Cronath were unlike any enemy the galaxy had known. They were a hive mind controlled by a central queen, and they consumed entire civilizations. In the past decade, 17 species had fallen to their relentless advance. Their ships were alive, grown rather than built, and their warriors felt no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. Representative Qualith of the Zentari spoke up, his voice carrying across the chamber. "What you ask is impossible. The Cronath fleet outnumbers our combined forces 3-1. Any military action would be suicide. Then what good is this council?" Talira screamed, her composure finally breaking. "What is the point of your laws and your treaties if you abandon us when we need you most?" The representatives shifted uncomfortably. They had asked themselves this question before, when other species came begging for help. The answer was always the same. Better to let one species fall than risk the entire council in a war they couldn't win. For 3 days, the council debated. They discussed diplomatic solutions, economic sanctions, and strongly worded statements. All the while, the reports from Velar space grew worse. The death toll climbed into the hundreds of millions. The Cronath were not just conquering. They were harvesting the population for biomass to grow more ships, more warriors. On the 3rd day, a junior analyst named Kreeth stood up from his seat in the observation gallery. He was young, barely past his first molting, and no one paid much attention to him. But his voice, when he spoke, was clear and steady. "There is one option we haven't discussed," Kreeth said. High Chancellor Vexor frowned. "Junior analyst, this is not the time for the humans." Kreeth interrupted, and the entire chamber went silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. The word hung in the air like a curse. Then everyone began talking at once, their voices rising in shock and denial and fear. "Absolutely not. Are you insane? We don't know anything about them. They're from a Class 12 death world." Vexor raised his hand and silence fell once more. "Junior Analyst Kreeth, I assume you understand what you're suggesting. The humans were discovered barely 40 cycles ago. They have refused all diplomatic contact. Their world is classified as one of the most dangerous planets in known space. We have no treaties with them, no understanding of their capabilities or intentions." Kreeth nodded. "I understand, Chancellor. But I have studied the reports from our scout ships. The humans have colonized 43 worlds in just 4 decades. Their technology is crude but effective. And their biology," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "They evolved as persistence hunters on a world where everything was trying to kill them. They don't give up, ever. That doesn't mean they'll help us," Representative Qualith said. "Why would they care about a species they've never met?" "Because," Kreeth said quietly, "according to their broadcasts, which we've been monitoring, they have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. They might just be crazy enough to help." The debate raged for another hour, but everyone knew the truth. They had no other options. The Velar were doomed unless someone intervened, and the humans were the only unknown factor in an equation that had already been solved. Finally, High Chancellor Vexor called for a vote. The motion passed by the slimmest of margins. They would contact Earth and request assistance. Ambassador Talira was brought to the communications center. Her hands shook as she recorded the message. She had seen the reports about Earth, seen the images of its savage oceans and violent weather, its predators and diseases. The humans had evolved in a nightmare, and it showed in everything about them. But she was desperate. "This is Ambassador Talira of the Valor Diplomatic Corps," she began. "I am sending this message on behalf of the Galactic Council. My people are under attack by the Kronath swarm. We are dying. We have no military capable of stopping them. The Council has voted to request your assistance. I know we have no right to ask this of you. We have ignored your requests for contact. We have treated you as curiosities rather than equals. But I am begging you, please help us. The coordinates of my homeworld are attached to this transmission. If you can hear this, if you care at all about the innocent lives being destroyed, please come. We are running out of time." She sent the message and waited. The Council told her not to expect a response. The humans might ignore them. Or worse, they might see this as an opportunity to demand concessions. Days passed with no reply, and Talira felt hope dying in her chest. Then on the 6th day, a response came through. The signal was powerful, punching through space with a strength that made the Council's technicians step back in alarm. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She had dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a military uniform of some kind. "Ambassador Talira, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Diplomatic Outpost. We received your message. We've reviewed the tactical data on the Kronath. We're sorry this happened to your people." She paused, and Talira saw something in those human eyes that she hadn't expected. Genuine compassion, but also something else, something dangerous. "Tell your people to take shelter and hold on," Commander Chen continued. "We're coming. And tell the Kronath that they just made a very big mistake." The transmission ended. Talira stared at the blank screen, not sure whether to feel relief or terror. The humans were coming. The Deathworlders were coming. She just hoped that when they arrived, there would still be a Valar civilization left to save. In the council chambers, High Chancellor Vexor read the response and felt a chill run down his spine. They had invited the humans into galactic affairs. They had opened a door that could never be closed. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same. The message from the Galactic Council reached Earth on a Tuesday afternoon. Within 30 minutes, every government on the planet had been notified. Within an hour, the United Earth Congress had convened an emergency session. Within 3 hours, they had activated Protocol Exodus. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the war room beneath Geneva, watching as the massive display screens lit up with data. Red markers appeared across human space, each one representing a military asset being brought online. Ships that had been in dock for maintenance suddenly swarmed with activity. Soldiers on leave received recall notices. Factories that had been producing civilian goods switched over to military production. "How long until the fleet is ready?" asked General Zhao, the head of Earth's military command. "The first wave can launch in 6 hours, Sarah replied. "The full armada will be assembled in 4 days. But Admiral Zhang wants to wait. He's planning something." General Zhao nodded. He had worked with Zhang Wei for 20 years and knew the man's mind. Zhang never did anything without 3 backup plans and a surprise waiting in the wings. Across human space, the mobilization continued. On Mars, the shipyards went into overdrive, technicians swarming over vessels that had been built for this exact scenario. The ships didn't look like the elegant cruisers of the Galactic Council. Human warships were blocky, ugly things covered in armor plating and redundant systems. They were built by a species that assumed everything would go wrong and planned accordingly. Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching his crew prepare for departure. Marcus was a tall man with dark skin and the kind of calm presence that made people trust him instantly. He had grown up on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, where the environment was so hostile that children learned to check their suit seals before they learned to read. "Status report," he called out. His executive officer, Lieutenant Amara Okonkwo, looked up from her console. Amara was from Earth, born in Lagos, and she had the quickest tactical mind Marcus had ever seen. "All systems green, Captain. Crew is at 98%. We're just waiting for the ammunition supplies." "Ammunition?" Marcus said with a slight smile. "The Council uses energy weapons almost exclusively. They're going to be very surprised when they see what we're bringing. Sir, I've been reading the tactical data on the Kronath. Amara said. They rely on overwhelming numbers and biological weapons. Their ships are tough, but they're optimized for fighting enemies who are softer than us. Marcus understood what she meant. The species of the Galactic Council had evolved on gentle worlds with perfect climates and abundant resources. They had never developed the kind of aggressive immune systems humans had. They had never needed to build ships that could withstand radiation levels that would kill most organic life. They had never fought wars where losing meant extinction. Humans had done all of those things. Earth had tried to kill them for millions of years, and they had survived by becoming the toughest, most adaptable, most stubbornly persistent species imaginable. They didn't know how to give up because giving up meant death. Down in the cargo bay, Sergeant Jennifer Martinez checked her weapons for the third time. She was a Marine, part of the Colonial Drop Corps, and she was looking forward to this mission with an enthusiasm that would have disturbed most species. Jennifer had joined the military because she was good at violence and wanted to use that skill for something meaningful. This qualified. You think the bugs are tough? Her squad mate Corporal Davis asked. Doesn't matter, Jennifer replied. Tough just means we get to have more fun. The Marines laughed. They were all volunteers, all from colony worlds where the environment had made them even harder than Earth-born humans. They trained in heavy gravity, in toxic atmospheres, in temperature extremes that would kill most sentient beings in minutes. The Kronoth biological weapons didn't scare them. They had survived worse things before breakfast. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Jiang Wei reviewed the final preparations. He was an older man, gray-haired and lean, with eyes that missed nothing. He had fought in the colony wars, back when humanity was still figuring out how to expand into space. He had learned that in battle, surprise was worth more than numbers. Tactical, he said. Show me the Valar system. The holographic display lit up, showing the Valar homeworld surrounded by a cloud of Kronoth ships. Jiang studied the formation, noting the patterns, the gaps, the assumptions the enemy was making. They're spreading out, he observed, covering all the approach vectors. They expect us to arrive at the edge of the system and fight our way in. His tactical officer nodded. Standard galactic military doctrine, sir. Jump to the outer system, form up, advance in formation. Then we won't do that, Jiang said with a slight smile. Send a message to all ships. We're jumping directly into orbit. I want us to appear right in the middle of their fleet. The tactical officer paled slightly. Sir, jumping into a gravity well is incredibly dangerous. The calculations have to be perfect, or we could materialize inside a planet. Which is why we've been practicing it for the past 20 years. Jiang replied. The Council thinks it's impossible. The Kronoth won't even consider it. That gives us maybe 5 seconds of complete surprise. In space combat, 5 seconds is an eternity. Over the next 4 days, the human armada gathered 847 warships, from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers. It was 30% of humanity's total military strength, and it was about to announce Earth's presence to the galaxy in the loudest way possible. Commander Chen opened a channel to Ambassador Talira. The Valar woman looked exhausted, her hope fading with each passing hour. Ambassador, Sarah said gently, we're almost ready. I need you to get your people into shelters. Deep underground if possible. What's about to happen is going to be violent. How many ships are you sending? Talira asked. All of them, Sarah replied. Every ship we can spare. The Kronoth hurt people under our protection. That's not acceptable. Talira looked confused. But we're not under your protection. We've never even spoken before, Sarah's expression softened. Ambassador, you called for help. That's all we needed to hear. Now get your people to safety. We'll handle the rest. On the 6th day, the Armada prepared to jump. Captain Rivera stood on his bridge, feeling the familiar pre-combat tension. He had fought pirates and raiders before, but never anything like this. Never against an enemy that had conquered 17 civilizations. All ships report ready, Amara announced. Marcus nodded. Open a channel to the crew. When the light turned green, he spoke. This is the captain. In a few minutes, we're going to do something that every tactical manual says is impossible. We're going to jump directly into a combat zone, into a gravity well surrounded by enemy ships. If we do this right, we'll save millions of lives. If we do this wrong, we'll be scattered across space at the atomic level. I've seen the faces of the Valar people in those transmissions. I've seen the children hiding in ruins, the families torn apart. The Kronoth think they can do whatever they want because no one has been strong enough to stop them. Today we're going to teach them a lesson about picking on people weaker than themselves. Today we're going to show them what happens when you make humanity angry. He paused, then added, Besides, I don't know about you, but I really want to see the look on their faces when we appear right behind them. The crew laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Marcus smiled. Fear was natural. Fear kept you sharp. But fear couldn't be allowed to control you. Admiral Zhang is giving the signal, Amara reported. Jump in 30 seconds. Marcus sat down in his command chair and strapped in. Around the ship, crew members did the same. In the Marine Bay, soldiers checked their weapons one last time. In engineering, technicians monitored the power systems that were about to do something that should be impossible. 10 seconds, Amara counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. The universe twisted. For a moment that lasted both an instant and an eternity. The indomitable existed nowhere and everywhere at once. Then reality snapped back into focus, and Captain Marcus Rivera found himself exactly where he wanted to be. In orbit around the Valar homeworld, surrounded by 846 other human warships, with a very surprised Kronoth fleet less than 1,000 kilometers away. All ships accounted for, Amara reported, her voice showing her own surprise that the insane plan had worked. 0 jump casualties. We're right on target. Shields up, weapons hot, Marcus ordered. And somebody open a channel to the Kronoth. I think Admiral Zhang wants to say hello. Ambassador Talira huddled in the underground bunker, with the last survivors of her district. The walls shook constantly from explosions above. Every few minutes, someone's communication device would beep with news of another city fallen, another million dead. Children cried in the darkness. Adults tried to comfort them with lies about rescue that would never come. She checked her chronometer. 6 days since the humans had promised to come. 6 days of watching her world die. Maybe Commander Chen had been lying. Maybe the humans had decided the Valar weren't worth saving. Maybe every screen in the bunker suddenly lit up. Every communication device, every sensor, every piece of technology capable of receiving a signal blazed to life simultaneously. Talira looked up in confusion. Above the planet, in the cold darkness of space, the Kronoth fleet detected something impossible. Every sensor on every ship screamed warnings at the same time. Gravity signatures, massive ones, appearing not at the edge of the system where ships were supposed to arrive, but right here, right in orbit, right in the middle of their formation. The Swarm Queen, commanding from her massive bioship the consuming darkness, felt confusion ripple through the hive mind. This wasn't possible. Jumping into a gravity well required calculation so precise that even a tiny error meant death. No species was reckless enough to attempt it. Then space tore open in 847 places at once. The human armada materialized in perfect formation, their shields already raised, their weapons already hot. For 5 seconds, absolute silence fell across every channel. The Kronoth ships hung in space, their biological sensors trying to process what they were seeing. The Valar survivors stared at their screens in disbelief. Admiral Zhang Wei stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Avalanche, and allowed himself a small smile. The jump had worked perfectly. They had appeared exactly where he wanted them, and the look of shock on the Kronoth tactical displays was everything he had hoped for. Open all channels, he ordered, every frequency. I want everyone in this system to hear this. His communications officer nodded. Channels open, sir. Broadcasting in all known languages, including Kronoth. Zhang straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. This is Admiral Zhang Wei of the United Earth Fleet, responding to a distress call from our friends, the Valar. To the Kronoth swarm, you have attacked a peaceful species. You have murdered billions of innocent people. You have one opportunity to withdraw. You have 60 seconds to begin retreating. If you remain in this system, we will consider this a declaration of war against humanity. The choice is yours. In the bunker, Talira listened to those words and felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Around her, Valar survivors began to weep with relief. On the consuming darkness, the Swarm Queen processed this new information. The ships before her were small compared to her fleet. The humans were outnumbered nearly 50 to 1. Their technology appeared primitive. She reached out with her mind, broadcasting her response. Primitive Deathworlders, her voice echoed across every channel, a sound like grinding metal and screaming winds. You dare threaten the Kronoth? We have consumed 17 civilizations. We have fleets that blacken the stars. We are inevitable. We are boring, Admiral Zhang interrupted. He checked his chronometer. Also, it's been 60 seconds. Fire at will. The human fleet moved as one. What happened next would be analyzed by military historians for generations. But in the moment, it simply looked like controlled chaos. The Indomitable, leading the vanguard, accelerated directly at the nearest cluster of Cronath bioships. Captain Rivera felt the force press him into his chair as the ship hit 15 gravities of acceleration. Around him, his crew sat in gel-filled acceleration pods that kept them alive under forces that would turn most species into paste. Targets locked, Amara reported, firing main batteries. The Indomitable's primary weapons were mass drivers, simple in concept but devastating in execution. Magnetic rails accelerated tungsten rods to 30% of light speed. At that velocity, they didn't need explosives. The kinetic energy alone was enough to punch through anything. The first salvo hit the Cronath line like a hammer hitting eggs. 3 bioships simply disintegrated, their organic armor no match for the relativistic projectiles. 4 more took critical damage, their internal fluids boiling into space. The Cronath fleet reacted, finally breaking free of their shock. They swarmed forward, their biological weapons charging, their tactics falling into familiar patterns. They would overwhelm with numbers, drown the enemy in bodies and ships, accept casualties until the opponent broke. It was a strategy that had worked 17 times before. It didn't work on humans. Evasive pattern delta, Marcus ordered. The Indomitable rolled, dove, and accelerated in ways that should have torn it apart. Human ships were built with redundancies on top of redundancies, structural reinforcement that seemed excessive until moments like this. They could take punishment that would destroy Council vessels and keep fighting. Cronath plasma fire washed over the Indomitable's shields. The temperature spiked to levels that would vaporize most ships. Human shields, designed to operate near stars and in radiation storms, held firm. Return fire, Marcus said calmly. All weapons. The Indomitable's broadside lit up space. Mass drivers fired in sequence, each shot precisely calculated. Missile tubes launched smart projectiles that jinked and dodged, seeking weak points. Point defense lasers created a web of death around the ship, destroying any Cronath fighters that got too close. Across the system, 846 other human ships did the same. They fought with a coordination that seemed impossible without a hive mind. But humans had developed something the Cronath had never encountered. Tactical networks enhanced by AI that let each ship function independently while contributing to the whole. The Swarm Queen watched her casualties mount and felt something she had never experienced before. Uncertainty. The humans fought like nothing she had encountered. They took damage that should destroy them and kept fighting. They flew their ships through maneuvers that should kill their crews and came out shooting. They fought as if they were angry. They were angry. Lieutenant Okonkwo pulled up the tactical display and smiled grimly. Sir, we're achieving a 10-to-1 kill ratio. For every ship we lose, we're taking down 10 of theirs. Not good enough, Marcus replied. These things hurt the Valor, they hurt civilians. I want that ratio higher. Down on the Valor homeworld, the Cronath ground forces suddenly found themselves under attack from above. Human dropships screamed through the atmosphere, ignoring the plasma fire and biological weapons trying to bring them down. They didn't dodge gracefully like Council ships. They just accepted the hits and kept coming. Sergeant Jennifer Martinez was in the first wave. Her powered armor made her look twice normal human size, covered in weapons and armor plating. She hit the ground running, her squad behind her, moving through ruins still burning from Cronath bombardment. Contact 200 meters. Her helmet display showed. A swarm of Cronath warriors, each one 3 meters tall with natural weapons that could tear through steel. Finally, Jennifer said, grinning inside her helmet. All teams, weapons free. Let's show these bugs why you don't mess with humans. The Marines opened fire. Human weapons were loud, violent, and effective. They used chemical propellants to launch projectiles at supersonic speeds because sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The Cronath warriors charged, fearless in their hive mind coordination. They learned fear quickly. Jennifer's squad moved through them like a natural disaster. Powered armor amplified their already impressive strength. Human reflexes, honed by millions of years of hunting and being hunted, let them react faster than the Cronath expected. And human tactics, developed through thousands of years of warfare, meant they fought smart as well as hard. One Cronath warrior managed to close with Jennifer, its blade arms raised to strike. She caught both arms, twisted, and threw the creature through a wall. "You guys wanted a fight," she shouted over the squad channel. "How's it feel to be the prey for once?" In the bunker, Ambassador Talira watched the tactical feeds with growing awe. The humans were winning, against impossible odds. Against an enemy that had never been defeated. They were actually winning. She saw their ships dancing through space, saw their soldiers fighting on her world's surface, and she understood something the Council had never grasped. The humans weren't just physically tough. They were mentally tough. They had been shaped by a world that offered no mercy, no second chances. They had learned to fight because on Earth, if you didn't fight, you died, and they had taken that lesson to heart so deeply that it had become part of who they were. A young Valar girl tugged on Talira's sleeve. "Are we going to be okay?" she asked in a small voice. Talira looked at the screens showing human ships destroying the Cronath fleet, showing human marines clearing her world of invaders, and she finally allowed herself to believe. "Yes," she said, hugging the child close. "Yes, we're going to be okay." The humans came. The battle had raged for 6 hours when the Swarm Queen realized she was losing. The concept was foreign to her, incomprehensible almost. The Cronath had swept across the galaxy like a plague and nothing had stopped them. But these humans, these creatures from their impossible world, were doing more than stopping her. They were destroying her fleet. She watched through the eyes of her warriors as human marines fought through conditions that should kill them. One group had breached a Cronath hive ship, and she had responded by flooding the compartments with toxins that would dissolve most organic life. The humans kept fighting, their suits protecting them, their determination unwavering. She raised the temperature to 70 degrees Celsius. The humans adjusted their cooling systems and kept fighting. She vented the atmosphere. The humans switched to internal oxygen and kept fighting. She tried biological weapons, nerve agents, acids. The humans had developed on a world so hostile that their immune systems could fight off almost anything. They kept fighting. "What are you?" she broadcast in frustration, directly to the human ships. Admiral Zhang Wei heard the question and considered his response. "We're human," he said simply. "We're from Earth, and you made the mistake of hurting people we decided to protect." Lieutenant Okonkwo was leading a boarding party deep inside a Cronath node ship when her oxygen tank took damage from enemy fire. She had 19 minutes of air left. Her mission required 25 minutes to complete. She checked her chronometer, shrugged, and kept moving. "Lieutenant, your O2 is critical," her second-in-command warned. "Then we better move fast," Amara replied. She led her team through the organic corridors, planting charges at key structural points. The node ship was a major coordination hub for the Cronath fleet. Destroying it would cause chaos in their formations. They completed the mission in 18 minutes. Amara's oxygen meter read 0 as they evacuated, but humans could hold their breath for a surprisingly long time when motivated. She made it back to her ship with 30 seconds of consciousness remaining. "Node ship destroyed," she reported to Captain Rivera, gasping for air. "Cronath fleet coordination is fragmenting." Marcus smiled. "Good work, Lieutenant. Now go to medical before you pass out." The Swarm Queen felt the loss of her node ship like a physical blow. The hive mind stuttered, connections breaking and reforming more slowly. The humans had identified a weakness and exploited it with ruthless efficiency. She needed to adapt, to change tactics, to... The human fleet adapted faster. Admiral Zhang had been holding back his heavy ships, the dreadnoughts and carriers that formed the core of his fleet. The Swarm Queen had noticed their absence and assumed they were being held in reserve for defense. She committed her own reserve forces, trying to flank the human line and divide their formation. It was exactly what Zhang had been waiting for. "All carriers," he ordered, "launch drone swarms." The carrier ships opened their bays and released clouds of autonomous drones, thousands of them, each one carrying a small nuclear warhead. The Cronath had pioneered swarm tactics. The humans were about to show them how it was really done. The drones moved with coordinated precision that matched the Cronath hive mind, but with faster processing speeds. They flowed through space like schools of fish, overwhelming Cronath point defenses through sheer numbers and unpredictable movement patterns. Each drone was expendable. Each one was a weapon, and there were so many of them that the Cronath fleet couldn't target them all. The first wave hit the Swarm Queen's reserve fleet like a hammer. Nuclear fire blossomed in space, thousands of small suns burning for brief moments. When the light faded, Dozens of Cronath ships were gone and dozens more were crippled. The Swarm Queen felt panic for the first time in her existence. These humans, these Deathworlders, had turned her own tactics against her with their typical human addition, overwhelming firepower. She pulled back her remaining forces, trying to consolidate, to protect her command ship. The humans didn't let her. Captain Rivera saw the Cronath formation collapsing and pressed his advantage. All ships converge on the command vessel. Let's cut the head off this snake. The Indomitable led a squadron of heavy cruisers directly at the consuming darkness. The Swarm Queen's ship was massive, larger than any human vessel, covered in organic armor meters thick and armed with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. None of it mattered. The human ships formed a sphere around the consuming darkness, attacking from every angle simultaneously. The Cronath vessel's weapons couldn't track them all. For every shot that hit, 3 missed. And the humans kept firing, kept moving, kept pressing. Marcus opened a direct channel to the Swarm Queen. "Your species made a mistake," he said, his voice calm and cold. "You attacked a peaceful people. You killed billions. You made us angry, and humans are very good at being angry. You cannot kill me," the Queen responded, her voice showing desperation now. "I am eternal. I am mortal," Marcus finished. "Just like everything else in the universe." Indomitable fire main gun. The Indomitable's primary weapon was something that other species had banned as too dangerous. It was a particle beam weapon that channeled the power of a small sun through a firing chamber. At point-blank range, focused on a single target, it was devastating beyond measure. The beam lanced out, pure white energy that made the surrounding space seem dark by comparison. It hit the consuming darkness's organic armor and burned through meters of bioengineered protection in seconds. The ship tried to regenerate, tried to adapt, but the beam was too powerful, too focused. The Swarm Queen screamed, her psychic cry echoing across the system as her ship died around her. The hive mind, which had controlled millions of warriors and thousands of ships, shattered like glass. Every Cronath in the system suddenly found themselves alone, individual for the first time, feeling fear without the collective to shield them. It broke them. Cronath ships began to flee, their coordination gone, each one trying to escape independently. The human fleet methodically hunted them down. There would be no mercy, no quarter given. The Cronath had committed genocide. The humans would ensure they never did it again. On the Valar homeworld, Sergeant Martinez and her Marines watched as the Cronath ground forces suddenly stopped fighting in coordination. The warriors looked around in confusion. Their hive-mind connection severed, and the Marines showed them what happened to invaders who attacked under human protection. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was an extermination. By hour 11, it was over. The Cronath fleet was destroyed. The ground forces were eliminated. The Valar system was secured. Admiral Zhang stood on his bridge and felt the weight of what they had done. 43,000 humans had died today. It was a tragedy that would haunt him for the rest of his life. But they had saved the Valar. They had stopped the Cronath. And they had sent a message to the galaxy that would echo for generations. "Communications," Zhang ordered. "Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the Valar system is secure. Tell them the Cronath threat has been eliminated. And tell them that Earth would like to formally request membership in the Council." His communications officer smiled as she sent the message. "Sir, I think they're going to accept." Zhang nodded slowly. "They'd be fools not to. We just demonstrated something they've never seen before. We showed them that evil can be stopped, that tyrants can fall, that sometimes the only answer to violence is greater violence in defense of the innocent." He looked out at the wreckage floating in space, the remains of the Cronath fleet, and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Then he got back to work. There were survivors to rescue, wounded to treat, and a galaxy full of species who were about to learn that humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and humanity was done being ignored. Ambassador Talira emerged from the bunker into daylight for the first time in 8 days. The sky above her homeworld was clear, the black swarm of Cronath ships replaced by the blocky, functional shapes of human vessels. Around her, Valar survivors stumbled out of hiding places, blinking in the sunlight, hardly believing they had lived. A human soldier approached her, moving carefully to avoid startling anyone. He was young, barely past 20 in Earth years, with kind eyes and a plasma burn on his shoulder that medical foam was slowly healing. He held out a container of water and food rations. "Ma'am," he said in carefully practiced Valar, "these are for you and your people. Medical teams are setting up aid stations 2 blocks north. We've cleared the area of threats." Talira took the supplies with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Then louder, "Thank you for coming." The young Marine smiled. "That's what we do, ma'am. Someone calls for help, we come. It's that simple," but it wasn't simple, and Talira knew it. She had seen the casualty reports. 43,000 humans had died defending people they had never met, a species that had ignored their requests for contact, for a cause that offered Earth nothing in return, except the knowledge that they had done the right thing. Across the city, human Marines worked alongside Valar survivors to clear rubble and search for trapped civilians. Medical corpsmen treated Valar wounded with the same care they gave their own injured. Engineers repaired power systems and water treatment plants. They didn't act like conquerors or even like mercenaries. They acted like people who genuinely cared about helping. Commander Sarah Chen walked through what remained of the Valar capital, taking in the devastation. She stopped when she saw a human medic kneeling beside a Valar child, perhaps 6 years old and human equivalent. The child was crying, calling for parents who were likely dead. The medic didn't speak Valar, but she held the child's hand and sang a soft song, something about stars and hope. Sarah felt her throat tighten. This was why they fought. Not for territory or resources or political advantage. They fought because someone needed help, and they were able to provide it. Ambassador Talira found Sarah an hour later. "Commander Chen," she said formally, "I need to understand something. Your people fought with such violence, such brutality against the Cronath, but now you're showing such kindness to us. How can you be both?" Sarah considered the question carefully. "We're human," she said finally. "We're capable of terrible violence when we need to be. Earth taught us that. But we're also capable of great compassion. We choose which one to show based on the situation. The Cronath were killers, so we killed them. You're victims, so we help you. It's not complicated. But doesn't the violence change you?" Talira pressed. "Doesn't it make you more like the monsters you fight?" "Maybe," Sarah admitted. "But we've been asking ourselves that question for thousands of years. We've learned that the answer is in why you use violence, not just that you use it. We didn't come here for conquest or glory. We came because you asked for help. That makes all the difference." In orbit, Captain Rivera was overseeing the recovery of escape pods and rescue operations when Admiral Jiang contacted him. "Marcus, the Council wants to talk. They're convening an emergency session, and they want a human representative present." "Are you going, sir?" Marcus asked. "We both are," Jiang replied, "along with Commander Chen. The Council needs to understand what just happened here, and we need to make sure they understand we're not interested in conquest." The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 days. During that time, the galactic news networks exploded with coverage of the battle. Every species in the Council watched the recordings of human ships appearing inside a gravity well, of human Marines fighting through conditions that should kill them, of human weapons turning the invincible Cronath fleet into debris. The reactions varied. Some species expressed gratitude and relief. Others expressed fear. A few expressed anger that the humans had used such overwhelming force. Admiral Jiang noted all of these reactions and planned his speech accordingly. When they arrived at the council chambers, High Chancellor Vexor himself greeted them at the entrance. The reptilian leader looked at Admiral Jiang with a mixture of respect and wariness. "Admiral," he said carefully, "what you accomplished in the Valar system is unprecedented. The Cronath had never been defeated before. You destroyed them in less than 12 hours. 11 hours and 17 minutes, Jiang corrected gently. And we didn't destroy them all. Several dozen ships escaped. We let them go deliberately. They'll spread the word about what happens when you attack species under our protection." Vexor's eyes widened slightly at the phrase "under our protection," but he said nothing. He led the human delegation into the council chambers, where representatives from 40 species waited. The chamber fell silent as the humans entered. These 3 individuals in their simple military uniforms had done what the entire Galactic Council could not. They had stopped the Cronath. They had saved the Valar, and they had demonstrated military capabilities that terrified half the species present. Junior analyst Krayeth, the one who had suggested contacting Earth, watched from his seat in the observation gallery and allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. He had been right. The humans had helped. Of course, he hadn't anticipated just how effectively they would help. Admiral Zhang stood before the council and waited for Vexor to call the session to order. When the Chancellor nodded, Zhang began to speak. "Members of the Galactic Council," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 40 days ago you discovered humanity. You catalogued our world as a Class 12 death world. You observed our colonies and our technology with academic interest. You didn't contact us because you were afraid of what we might be. That was probably wise." He paused, letting that sink in. 6 days ago you sent us a desperate plea for help. You told us about the Valar, about the Cronath, about the slaughter happening while you debated and discussed. You asked us to fight a battle you couldn't win against an enemy you couldn't stop. And we came. Not because we wanted anything from you, not because we expected payment. We came because it was the right thing to do. Vexor leaned forward. "And now you want something in return?" "Yes," Zhang said bluntly. "We want membership in this council. Full voting rights, full diplomatic recognition, and the respect we've earned. In exchange, we offer military protection packs to any species that wants one. Purely voluntary, purely defensive. We won't interfere in your politics or your cultures, but if someone attacks you, if someone tries to do to you what the Cronath did to the Valar, we'll come, and we'll stop them." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives were enthusiastic. Others were terrified. One elderly diplomat from a species Zhang didn't recognize stood up and asked the question many were thinking. "Admiral, what guarantee do we have that you won't turn on us? You've demonstrated that your military could conquer this entire council if you chose to. Why should we trust you?" Zhang had expected this question. "You shouldn't trust us," he said, and the chamber went silent again. "Trust is earned over time. What you should do is look at our actions. We could have ignored the Valar. We could have demanded payment before we helped. We could have occupied their world after saving it. We did none of those things. We fought. We bled. We died for people we'd never met because they needed help." He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. "Earth is a hard world," he continued. "It made us tough, made us dangerous. But it also taught us empathy. Every human knows what it's like to be afraid, to face threats that seem impossible to overcome. We know what it means to need help. So when someone asks for it, we come. That's not going to change because we have better weapons or bigger ships. It's who we are." Commander Chen stood up beside Zhang. "The galaxy trembled when our armada arrived," she said. "We know that. We saw the fear in your eyes when we jumped into Valar space. We understand that fear. But we hope that over time you'll see past it to the truth. We're not monsters. We're just people who are very good at protecting our friends." The council debated for 2 days. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entailed. 40 species requested defense packs within the first week. Ambassador Talira was chosen to serve as the Valar representative in establishing the first Human-Alien Defense Treaty. She stood with Commander Chen at the signing ceremony, and after the formalities were complete, she asked one final question. "Sarah, what will happen if another threat appears? Another species like the Cronath?" Sarah's answer was simple and absolute. "We'll stop them. That's what we do." 3 months later, construction began on a joint human-Valar memorial on the Valar homeworld. It would honor the 43,000 humans who died defending people they'd never met, and the 2 billion Valar who died before help arrived. At the center of the memorial was a statue showing a human soldier kneeling beside a Valar child, offering comfort in the darkness. The inscription, written in both languages, read, "They came when we called. They fought when we fell. They stayed when we needed them. This is the promise of humanity, and we will never forget."